Rocky S. Pickens Jackson.
You ready?
Let's go! 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now live in the Bank Plus studio, where college football meets the Yall Lifestyle.
Ladies and gentlemen,
This is the Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds, streaming around the world live at the Out of Bounds radio app and on your radio at ESPN 105.9.
where are you?
The Zone.
All right, good morning. Welcome in. The Out of Bounds Show is brought to you by Michael Oswalt with Tom Smith Land and Homes. His number is 601-898-2772. If you're selling your hunting camp, farm, fishing cabin, or in the market to buy one, you want to go with the dude, Michael Oswalt, Tom Smith Land and Homes, 601-898-2772. Michael Oswalt, Tom Smith, Land and Homes. Hunting land, fishing cabin, lake house. He'll take care of you. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app. Hope you had a great weekend. We did. KJ Costello told us some things last week, and, well, they came to fruition. I mean, he said, hey, on Tuesday, I got this thing, basically the light came on. And then he talked about Mike Leach attacking space, and how that's going to wear down defenses, not every game, but a lot of Saturdays. And it worked out as he dropped 623 yards on the LSU Tigers. And LSU gets to see what the world is like without Joe Brady and Joe Burrow, which means that's who Ed Ogeron is. Eddie O's a 10-2 coach. I mean, not this year. Okay, we know that it's only 10 games, but he's a 10-2 coach with a loaded roster. And if the table is set and perfect, and the steak is cooked perfect, and the wine is perfect, and the decor and the plates and the atmosphere and everything is right, Blake, then he can go 15-0. And if not, he's a 10-2 guy, and he may or may not win the bowl game. That's what he is.
Yeah, especially when he doesn't make a good hire on the coordinator side of the ball. And through 1 week, I mean, I think everyone on this show understands how much I hate Scott Linehan. So
for our listeners, he's the former offensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Blake.
Yeah, he's
That's
Jason Garrett's whipping boy. He was terrible in Dallas. He was terrible week one. The offense was okay, but when you're scheming up runs and you go 38 carries for 80 yards and you're LSU, I mean, unless you're playing Alabama and they have that vaunted front defense that killed Leonard Fournette, I don't expect LSU to average 2.01 yards per carry, because that's ridiculous. So Linehan's offense, coupled with a defensive coordinator that seems to be stuck in 06. I mean, Bo Pelini trying to go lockdown man against this type of offense all game with no Derek Stingley Jr. and a couple other guys out because of injury and things like that, and your secondary is depleted.
Yeah.
You're going to have them run a track meet for 60 minutes against 9 receivers. That's the problem. It's not against 3 receivers.
Right.
It's not like in the NFL when you're running the same 3 to 4 dudes out there every play at receiver too. He played, including running backs, 9 different guys caught the football. So you're chasing those guys around 50 yards, sideline to sideline, 60 yards back and forth.
They were beat in the fourth quarter.
Osiris Mitchell and Javonte Payton, as Steve Robertson said on the interview earlier, were both open on that final touchdown pass. Both worked their corners. So,
You could argue Peyton was even more open. Farm Bureau Insurance call-in line, 601-707-3750. So, I mean, Eddie O, he's a 10-2 coach at a national power that gets all the players they want, has the state to themselves, gets a visit from anybody they want in the country. And, hey, I mean, they're LSU. They are the only game in town. They sign anybody they want from Louisiana. Every now and then Saban comes in and gets a kid, but even I think Ogeron's kind of shut that down too. Mm-hmm. But they have the state of Louisiana all to themselves. Resources, facilities. He's a 10-2 coach at the end of the day.
Yeah. When you don't get the offensive coordinator piece right, he might be a 9-3 coach.
And Scott Linehan trying to replace Joe Brady?
Lulz.
Not happening. Just not happening. We'll go to Mike on the Farm Bureau Insurance call-in line. Mike, good morning. How are you?
Hey, morning. What's going on, Bo?
Hey,
man, it was a great Saturday, man. Oh, my God. It's back. Thank God. Yeah, I'm a Gator fan, but, man, to have Mike Leach, Kiffin, and Deion Sanders, all of them, I know we didn't see Deion, but Leach, man, lit it up like a video game. That was so awesome. I hate LSU. It was great. I was cheering when my neighbor comes over. He watches football with me.
Yeah.
Just awesome. Couldn't put the remote down. I had one game on the cell phone, had the other game on the iPad, just doing it like we do on every Saturdays on football. It was awesome.
Well, guess what? You play Florida plays LSU October 17th.
Oh, man, I'm licking my chops. I'm licking my chops on Texas A&M because we pulled them, and then I'm licking my chops on Georgia. Georgia did not impress me. Not at all with that baseball score the first half, 7-5. I mean, and then they were struggling to find a quarterback. They finally got one. It was really their defense that turned everything around, which
no doubt.
Defense can score everything. But it was great. It was so great. And then my Bucks, my Tom Brady, thank God, he's there. My Bucks, we're leading the division thanks to the Pack. So it was great.
Yeah,
good weekend, bro.
Okay, buddy. Well, thanks, Mike. I appreciate you listening to the show, and I'm glad you had to go Gators. 601-707-3750 is the Farm Bureau Insurance call-in line, and we'll go with this. Could be interesting. We'll go with Gator Matt. Gator Matt, what's up?
Bo,
hey,
I'm going to preface this whole conversation by saying I'm extremely happy and proud for the state of Mississippi because I think both teams played really well. Now, with that being said, I knew Blake was just going to be throwing up all over himself all morning long. And look, I think he has a reason. I think KJ Costello played well, but let's pump the brakes. It's week one. LSU is trash. They're awful. And write it down. I agree with Blake. Why you're going, man, the whole game with the depleted defense beyond me. And I think Ron is Gene Chizik reborn. It's absolutely ridiculous. But listen, Mike Lee, I'm so happy he's in the state of Mississippi. It's entertaining. But listen, when he loses to Arkansas,
hot garbage.
Like he does, he's going to lose a game. Let's bring back your enthusiasm again, okay, Blake? Because that's what Leach does. He beats these teams. And let's hope he doesn't continue his trend of losing the teams he shouldn't lose to. Listen, we'll talk to you guys later.
All right. Thanks for the call. Your defense has to play better,
too.
Yeah,
that was a terrible call. I can't wait to trash you guys in Atlanta.
Now, granted, Ole Miss offense played well, and they've got pieces, without a doubt. But, your D didn't look. Of course, Dave Bartu has said over and over again, Dan Mullen will have to replace Todd Grantham to have a chance to win the national title at Florida.
That's tough.
That he is, he's good, but there are some better guys out there that a Florida can get. And, hey, the Lane train knows how to get the ball to the play. 227 yards. I mean, everybody in the stadium knew that Elijah Moore was going to get the ball, and yet they got him the ball.
Yeah, the question.
Now, this transfer from Pennsylvania, I mean, dude, 91 yards. Ebo, I mean, he's big.
Kenny Yeboah.
Yeah.
Tight end. He's gonna be a good player.
That's but so maybe he is gonna be number 2. I don't know. I mean, Drummond had, a couple of big catches, but
someone's got to be stepped up because Elijah Moore will get locked down by somebody at some point, and that's when you're gonna need those second guys, third guys to step up.
Well, I mean, what are you gonna do with Mingo and Jackson and Sanders and everything else? So we'll see. I mean, Ely caught 3 passes for 44 yards, which is strong. The Out of Bounds Show brought to you by Michael Oswalt. Tom Smith, Landon Holmes. His number is 601-898-2772. Brad Edwards, College Game Day on ESPN at 9:30.
The The Out of Bounds Show is powered by award-winning golf courses at Dancing Rabbit Golf Club in Philadelphia, Mississippi.
Welcome in. We're excited to have Dallas Body Shop on the show. Dallas Body Shop in Ridgeland basically backs up to Acura of Jackson. But for all your, if you have a fender bender, you're in a wreck, which, by the way, I hope you're okay. Or if you hit a deer like I did in the last couple of years, for all your collision repair, Dallas Body Shop in Ridgeland. I've been taking my vehicle there for 20 years. They do a great job. Dallas Body Shop in Ridgeland, Mississippi. Show's also brought to you by Went McGee, the Mortgage Man. MortgageManMS.com. Went McGee, the Mortgage Man. MortgageManMS.com. He'll shop the best rates for you. Blake and I were having a discussion during the break. You know, Mike Leach has had to... No doubt he has a chip on his shoulder. No question he should have been hired by a really good program long before Mississippi State hired him. He has basically been coaching in the desert in Lubbock, Texas.
Literally in Lubbock is the desert.
Yeah.
That's a fact. I'm from there.
Well, easy, wild man.
I am. It's a desert. It's sandstorms. Have you been to Lubbock? It's awful.
No, but how long did you live in Lubbock?
4 years, and then I've been back a few times.
Okay. All right. Good deal.
I was there in 2015. I drove through Lubbock.
On the way to Omaha?
16.
Surely not.
No. I was working in Colorado, and I took this roundabout way back to see family.
Why would you go that way?
No, there's nothing out there but sand and Texas Tech.
Okay, so he here's the deal. He coached in the desert and in Alaska.
Accurate.
And now he's at a place that, when run the right way, can be a top 20, top 25 program. At times can move into the top 15, and there's players everywhere. Starkville, Golden Triangle, Noxubee County, Jackson Metro, Tupelo, and then all these little, spots that it's amazing what, Kosciuszko and Ackerman and Louisville and
all the guys
the Pine Belt,
all the guys Memphis has been making money on should be going to state in the future. These receivers that go to Memphis, that go to like Tulane or something, and end up being big guys and get to the NFL. I mean, I think Anthony Miller with the Chicago Bears, he was a star for Memphis. Darrell Henderson was a star for Memphis and went to the Rams. Like, those types of guys are athletic offensive playmakers that Mississippi State has been missing out on, that Leach offense should take advantage of.
Yeah. Did you see this stat here from it's an unnamed texter on the Mississippi Ag text line, 601-885-3776. Bo Pelini versus Mike Leach.
Ugh, woof.
He's 0-3. And that's incredible. Surely those total offensive numbers are not right. Anyway.
That's incredible, though, to go 0-3 against a coach that you know that well, who hasn't changed his offensive philosophy, who is the same every single time.
Somebody asked why Leach wasn't hired by a big-time program. It's because Will Muschamp and Jeremy Pruitt-type guys are going to get hired over a Mike Leach.
Because they come from a right tree and they say the right things.
Yeah. I don't know of any other way to put it. It's Leach is a little unorthodox, a little quirky, although now his offense is becoming mainstream. I mean, just overnight. I mean, it took a long time, but Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, Gardner Minshew, now you see what's going on with KJ Costello. But for years, even other coaches, because they didn't know how to obviously teach it, they didn't know how to defend it, so they just did the lazy way. It's gimmicky.
Yeah. Well, and because he didn't have there wasn't this all-star quarterback to stake their name to for the air raid offense because they took guys who maybe weren't thought of as superstars and turned them into great players. And then when they got back into bad offensive schemes in the NFL, they didn't succeed because it was a bad offensive scheme and they weren't built that way.
Because it was a West Coast
exactly.
offense. So what would happen is Kingsbury or somebody would get up there, and the NFL teams were not willing to run even some kind of variation of the air raid.
Yeah, now it's totally different.
It's totally
so
different.
You have, like you said, you have Patrick Mahomes, who's obviously the name, face, and brand of the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, it helps that he went to Texas Tech and he played in the air raid system. But even more than that, like you said, Kyler Murray, an incredible talent at Arizona, who's actually running the air raid system in the NFL,
right.
which is remarkable.
Right.
Finally that it made it to the NFL. And then you have guys like Gardner Minshew slinging the rock, and even others that are in the league. Anthony Gordon's a backup, set the NCAA passing record last 2 years. So it's become mainstream because Oklahoma runs it, because Clemson runs variations of it with their wide
Lincoln
receivers.
Riley is a guy who was under Leach forever.
Although, tough day yesterday or Saturday for Oklahoma.
Yeah, they ended up getting boat raced at the end.
21-point lead they blew at home to Kansas State.
And Kansas State had lost to Arkansas State.
That's correct. Although Chris Kleiman is an incredible coach.
He's won a couple of national titles at where? North Dakota State or South?
North, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. All right.
Carson Wentz.
What's going on with all right, we'll hit the NFL for 2 minutes, and then we'll get back. We'll do a 24-minute segment with Brad Edwards on MSU and Leach and Ole Miss and Kiffin coming up at 9:30. Rough day for the Cowboys. For whatever reason, they're still poorly coached. I don't understand why. They make terrible boneheaded mistakes on special teams.
Cost them 7 points maybe yesterday?
Yeah.
Brutal.
And it was a close game. Dak played well. He's got to take care of the ball. Russell Wilson played well. But
the defense, 3 busted coverages. And DK Metcalf had a touchdown, obviously, that he fumbled on an incredible play by Diggs to come back, but it was a missed coverage again. I mean, Tyler Lockett was wide open all first half.
Wide open.
It's kind of like they forgot about him in the second half.
How do you forget about Tyler Lockett?
He could have, Pete Carroll did in the second half, because I think they could have kept going to him and just won the game that way.
True. And blown him out.
Well, and Pete Carroll did what coaches who are natural meathead football coaches do. And I know I get that Pete Carroll's good at a lot of things, but his biggest weakness has been that offensive side of the football his whole tenure at Seattle. And you saw it again Sunday in a game that really shouldn't have been that close.
Oh, no, it should not have been. Everything was falling apart for the Cowboys.
At one point, Dallas was missing 5 offensive linemen.
Tony Pollard decided to, fumble and down the ball at the 1 yard line.
At one point,
and Zeke tripped over a blade of grass for safety.
Dallas was missing 4 tackles and their starting center. Think about that. In the NFL, they were missing 4 offensive tackles, 2 on each side, and their starting center. He had 2 of his top 7 linemen in the game at one point, Dak did. And he actually did both set the Cowboys record for most 400-yard passing games, 6 in his career. That's more than Romo, Aikman, anybody else like that. And he did back-to-back 400-yard passing games for the first time ever.
Well, they have to beat Cleveland this weekend.
Correct.
Let's go back to the Mississippi Ag text line, and this guy says, Leach also hasn't beaten the right teams. Now, David from Tupelo, by the way, thanks for listening from Tupelo. I guess you're streaming on the Out of Bounds radio app or the zone1059.com. I will counter that a little bit, David. He had a monster mega win against Texas.
Yeah.
On primetime TV, nighttime game. Crabtree caught a ball on the sideline.
Evaded 2 guys. It was incredible.
Yeah. So, and that was when Mac Brown was rolling. It was kind of like this. Mac was a top 10 recruiter. Leach was probably at Texas Tech, 35, 40 composite recruiter, maybe, somewhere in there. And that was a huge win. Texas was either 1, 2, or 3 or something like that. But look, this one is different because the SEC on CBS is just different. And I would have to believe it was the most watched college football game of the weekend. We'll get the ratings here in an hour or two. But yeah, that's big time to beat the defending national champs on CBS. Brings more people to the party. Brad Edwards coming up next.
Hey, it's Kirk Herbstreit. Look, the best minds in the game all have one thing in common. They know that to dominate the competition, you have to be 2 steps ahead of it. So does C Spire Business. Everything they do, from technology to expertise to service, is to keep you ahead of the competition. I've been around a lot of head coaches, and the ones that win big, they think like CEOs. And that's exactly what it takes to win. C Spire Business, what it takes to win. Go to cspirebusiness.com.
From the Whiskey 61 Lounge, it's Mississippi's only food sports show on the airwaves. We're the only World Food Championship host in the state. This is the Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds.
Woo! All right, your SEC Insider Hit this morning is brought to you by Southern Bound Outdoors, getting you ready for hunting season. Bow season starts in what, 2 days? 3 days. They've got a great selection of bows. They're right on top of it when it comes to archery. Southern Bound Outdoors, powered by their Sitka gear at Southern Bound Outdoors in Canton. Go see Jeffrey Bounds at Southern Bound Outdoors. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. Out of Bounds, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. We welcome in Brad Edwards, College Game Day on ESPN Radio. He joins us on the Parish Brewing guest line. Brad, good morning. How are you?
Oh, doing well. Listen, it was an exciting weekend in the state. I mean, look, I think the Ole Miss fans probably came away with a little bit to be excited about, even in a loss. But then that was kind of overwhelmed by the Mississippi State fans later in the afternoon, what they came away with.
Yeah, I mean, how awesome is Mike Leach?
That was fun. It was fun. Now, I do think, and I'm sure you've mentioned this, we do have to keep this in perspective, which is, even though that was the defending national champion, it wasn't the defending national champion. I mean, there were, 4 guys on that field, basically, on both sides of the ball combined, who were playing against Clemson. So it was a completely depleted LSU team, but still a team that, by recruiting rankings and all that, had a lot more talent out there than State did. And when you consider that, for all of the issues that it's fair to point out that LSU was facing, State was having to deal with its own, with the no spring practice and the disjointed fall practice, and having a new coach with a new scheme and a new quarterback who transferred in from elsewhere. They had a lot going against them as well. So I want to be fair on both ends, but man, what an impressive performance. And I tell you what, college football, it starts with having a quarterback. And if you've got a guy who can throw the ball on target, you're capable of a whole lot more than any team that doesn't have that guy.
Yeah, how impressed were you with KJ Costello and those wide receivers, regardless of what LSU's personnel was? I mean, everybody still wanted LSU's DBs, even if it was some guys that may not be quite ready to play. Nobody wanted Mississippi State's wide receivers, Brad.
That was the thing I was most impressed with State. I had no doubt that Costello could make the throws. I'd seen him do it 2 years ago at Stanford. Unfortunately, he was hurt last year and didn't really get to have much of a season. But my biggest reservation about State's offense and what they could do this year was, since he hadn't had time, Leach hadn't had time to recruit receivers, to play in his system. I just assumed they didn't have enough guys on the roster. Maybe they had 2 or 3, but not the 4 or 5 that you need to be successful with what he does. And that was the thing. It wasn't just 2 guys who were making all the catches, and look, I knew Kylan Hill could do it because he, not so much last year, but 2 years ago, had some really good receiving numbers. So I knew he could catch the ball out of the backfield. I just didn't think that they had enough guys who could consistently get open and then make the catches when the ball was thrown on target. And for the most part, they had, I guess, 4 of them that did it. 4 of them at the wideout positions who did it all game long. And that, to me, was the biggest surprise with their offense.
Brad Edwards on the Out of Bounds Show. You're listening to 105.9 The Zone. Brad, because you're from here and graduated from an SEC school, you know all about this area and how we operate when it comes to football. Two things I want to throw out to you and get your reaction. After the game, KJ Costello said, I've never been around guys that work like this. And I think that's all around the league, by the way, Brad. And he was talking about just the commitment and how hard they work and how hard they train. And basically, around here, we don't know any better. Leach said the same thing last week to The Athletic, Brad. He said, I'm blown away with how hard these guys play and practice. He said it's not like that out west. Just want to get your thoughts.
That is interesting. I mean, certainly out west, it's not part of the culture. You know, it's not something where so many of the kids grow up and they have goals, whether realistic or not, you know, to get to the NFL. I'm not saying that kids out west don't dream the way that most little kids dream. But as far as, you know, once you get older and you get into high school and actually taking it seriously and believing you can do that. But then even if you don't think that you can get to the NFL, it's just loving the sport enough to go out there and just want to be the best that you can be at it. And, you know, I think part of that also is the team environment. And once again, this is something that it doesn't necessarily equate to it being a bigger deal in the South. But I think when you have the right environment team-wise and you're all encouraging and pushing each other, then that kind of competition and support both ways makes people better and it makes them work harder. So maybe that's part of it. I don't know. But no question that football is a much bigger deal in the South. In fact, there was someone I saw making a joke back when the Pac-12 had canceled the season, and of course the Big Ten is starting all the movement to get back on the field, and you're hearing crickets out west. You know, like nobody's even speaking up and making an argument that they should be playing. And someone had made the joke, with the Pac-12, it just means less. You know, like it's just it's the anti-SEC, and in a lot of ways it is. But it's really interesting that they said that. You know, where I thought you were going when you said you grew up here and all that stuff, I thought you were going to go to what happened early in the fourth quarter on Saturday, which is having grown up a Mississippi State fan, which I did. It's where my dad went to school. So I suffered through any of your older listeners. I suffered through the same things they did, watching Mississippi State, you know, find ways to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. When they had the 10-point lead and then the back-to-back turnovers and basically just handed LSU a chance to take the first of all to hold them to the field goal and not let them, you know, go back in front, and then to respond the way they did offensively. I'm not saying that they're the only state team that has ever responded that way, but you look at the last 50 years, there have not been very many Mississippi State football teams that would not have absolutely come unraveled in that situation when they blew that lead as quickly as they did on the road against a highly ranked team. Most of the time, that's just what you would expect Mississippi State to do at that point, is just find a way to give it away. And then they would end up losing by 10 or 14. And this group did the opposite. So that's something that I look at and I say, you know what, this is a team that I'm going to be much more reluctant to question whether they can do certain things moving forward, because I thought they showed a lot of mental toughness the way that they had to end up winning that game in the fourth quarter.
Brad Edwards, College Game Day on ESPN Radio. He joins us on 105.9 The Zone and the Parish Brewing guest line. MSU takes down LSU. So they were 17-point dog. They won by 10. LSU has more talent, Brad. LSU won the field position battle, and they won the turnover battle.
Yeah.
But having a much better QB, like you referenced earlier,
Yep.
and having a better head coach won Mississippi State the game. Still, that doesn't happen that often, even with all that.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody yesterday about the game, and I said, you know, the thing that really surprised me was not that it was competitive, because I was expecting it to be much closer than people were thinking. What surprised me that it was as high scoring as it was, because I told you, I didn't have enough confidence in State's receivers to think they could put up 40-something points. But the other thing that I was not expecting was for LSU to score as much. But when you look back at it, they didn't score that much because of their offense. They scored because they had a defensive touchdown and they had a couple of short fields that were gifted to them. And really, I mean, I don't think the scoreboard was indicative of the way the game was played. Oh, and by the way, I mean, on top of that, maybe the two biggest plays, certainly two of the three biggest plays that Miles Brennan made in that game were balls that very easily could have been intercepted. Like they were, they were not well thrown passes, and he just had receivers that made great plays on the ball. So, if you watch the game, there was no question that State was the better team, and they probably should have won by more points than they did. And I look at LSU going forward because of, what you're saying about the quarterback position. And, I see 6-4, 5-5. I know that they're going to get better because they have a lot of inexperience, and the more they play, the more they're going to improve. But that's true for everyone in college football at this time of the year. And the biggest thing is I don't look at Miles Brennan and see a guy who has it. And I'm not saying he won't improve at all, but even when guys were open, he wasn't putting the throws in the spots where they needed to be in order to kind of maximize the potential of that play. So we knew he wasn't Joe Burrow, but I don't think he's anywhere close. And I think based on what you're seeing around the league this year, I think he's at best a middle of the pack quarterback.
Brad, MSU was playing the majority of the game with two walk-ons in the secondary. I mean, even that's still pretty remarkable, like you said, that you got to hit some more plays. And then they didn't run the football with authority. I thought at some point that they would kind of transition and start pounding on Mississippi State because it's a Joe Lee Dunn, 3-5 deal. Yeah. I mean, obviously Zach Arnett's moving a lot of, and you know how good Rocky Long is. No, most people don't, but he's a legendary defensive coach out in the West Coast, and that's where Zach cut his teeth and so on. But anyway, so Leach does this, and so what do you make of Mississippi? I mean, I'm not claiming they're going to win the West by any stretch, but KJ can obviously throw it. They've got better athletes that have been coached better, right, at the wide receiver position. Not that they're super by any stretch. Where do you see this headed?
Well, I think certainly they showed that they'll still make mistakes, and they made enough to give themselves a chance to blow the lead. And like I said, I think they showed a lot of fortitude in not having it turn out that way. Which makes you think two different ways. One is that, well, there's still a number of teams on the schedule they could lose to if they go out and do make more of those types of mistakes against a more experienced team. But then the other side is, who might they be able to beat if they play a clean game and they don't make mistakes? Could they give Alabama a run? I don't know. I mean, I think ultimately, there are a few offenses in the conference that are not going to waste as many opportunities as LSU did. They're going to be able to run the ball more effectively, like you were saying, things like that. So I still think that defensively they're gonna have some issues. But I mean, it's going to be like it's been for Leach almost everywhere that he's ever coached before. I mean, they're gonna find a way to score on everybody. And who do they not play in the East? I haven't looked at their schedule.
All right, they don't play Florida. They did pull Georgia, but they got Vandy too with the new rescheduling. So most years, as you know, Brad,
Georgia.
Yeah, they get Vandy, Kentucky, and Missouri from the East.
When's the Georgia game?
It's late. It's November 21st.
Yes, I mean, that's unfortunate for State because Georgia obviously has some questions to answer at quarterback right now. But
here's where I want to jump in with you is you were kind of going through A&M. To me is the game that Leach, I don't want to say could steal because it looks to me like A&M's regressing on offense, which Jimbo's really good at doing. But A&M in 2 weeks at home in Starkville, to me and again, it was game one, and A&M may take some giant step, even though they got Bama this weekend. But that's a game they could win in Starkville, Brad, against A&M.
Oh, I have no doubt about that. In fact, A&M was one of the most – let me just say, they were one of the biggest disappointments of last weekend that nobody is really talking about, because the level of disappointment in LSU and Oklahoma was so high that grabbed the headlines. And then on the next tier down, it was Texas needing to come back from 15 down with 3 minutes left in order to beat Texas Tech in overtime. So all of that kind of caused A&M to be overlooked by a lot of people. And it's not like Vandy nearly won the game. And Vandy didn't have the ball at the end with threatening to score a winning touchdown. But A&M struggled mightily against what I think is the worst team in the SEC.
Yes. And
to have that type of performance going into Tuscaloosa next week, I would think they're probably going to get it handed to them. And if they do, where's their confidence after 2 games? Struggling with Vandy, getting blown out at Alabama. Once again, we're assuming they get blown out at Alabama. I think State's got a great chance to beat them if it plays out that way. And then, who knows? You start to look around the conference. It's crazy when you think about not having the cupcakes out of conference to devour like everyone usually has, and to kind of get a few wins under your belt before you start playing the tougher opponents. I mean, this thing is brutal the way that it sets up. I can see, I can see there being like 4 or 5 fan bases that are ready to fire their head coach after 4 games because seriously, I could see LSU.
Well, A&M's going to lose to Bama this weekend,
A&M.
Florida next weekend, and has a chance to lose at Mississippi State the next weekend. They could start off 1-3, Brad.
Oh, they have Florida in between.
Yeah.
Oh, that's killer. But A&M is one of them. Yeah. So if they lose to Alabama and Florida, which is very possible, then yeah, absolutely losing to State, and then even Georgia, which we know is immensely talented. Like, they've got Auburn this week, and I still like Georgia to win that game, but if they don't figure something out at quarterback, and look, I did think Stetson Bennett did a really nice job while he was in there, but he is a former walk-on. With all the talent they have, like, surely you've got somebody better. I don't know what they're going to do, but if they don't beat Auburn this weekend, they've got Alabama coming up 2 weeks after that. And so, at Georgia, if you're 2-2 out of the gate, and who knows, maybe they could blow a game somewhere and be 2-3 after 5 games. But there are lots of LSU, just there's so many teams with high expectations, and there's so many possibilities for teams to be 2-2 after 4 games, when in any previous season that would have been absolutely unthinkable.
Brad Edwards, College Game Day on ESPN Radio, joining us on the Parish Brewing guest line. What was your takeaway from Ole Miss and Florida?
Yeah, I loved what Lane did out of the gate, putting both quarterbacks out on the field together. And I really do think that this is the future of football, which is having 2 guys who are legit quarterbacks on the field together and finding a way to kind of stress the defense, having to deal with both of them and different skill sets and all that, and find a way to keep them healthy all season while doing it, because obviously one of them is going to be getting exposed to some hits each play, especially if you're sending him out in pass routes or using him as a runner. So he's going to have to, work a little bit more at figuring out what he wants to do there, but I liked it. And I thought their offense, all in all, looked good. Once again, same deal that State was facing, which is you've got a new coaching staff and a new scheme, and they didn't have the transfer quarterback issue, but you did have a quarterback who was playing baseball, and then they didn't have spring practice either. So all that stuff was going against them, and thought they did really well. Defensively, they obviously still have issues, although Florida I think is going to score a lot of points on most teams this year. So I really came away more impressed with Florida's offense than disappointed with Ole Miss. I think that, game one, we talked about this last week, just given what we thought the keys were with this offseason and dealing with it, Florida checked all the boxes. They were one of those few teams that had the continuity everywhere. So I wasn't surprised at what happened. I don't think Ole Miss has anything to be worried about or ashamed of. They just lost to a better team. And I think they're another team that I would let's put it this way. If my defense is not in a good place going into a game against Ole Miss, I would be worried about what could happen that Saturday. So I think you're going to have a fun season covering college football because those two teams are going to put up a lot of points, and I think they're going to pull a few upsets along the way.
All right, we'll leave it there. Maybe we can do a 9-minute hit later in the week on the games ahead of us because I think Ole Miss traveling to Kentucky this weekend, more than winnable. They're a 6.5-point dog, but Kentucky's offense does not look good, and I just think this is a huge game for them to get in the win column, just considering the schedule because then they got Alabama the next week. Brad Edwards, College Game Day on ESPN Radio, joining us on the Coors Light guest line. Brad, hopefully we can catch up a little bit later this week. Appreciate it, buddy.
You got it, man. Take care.
See you, man. All right, so a little bit of Leach, a little bit of Kiffin. I thought, here's my takeaway from what he said. He grew up a Mississippi State fan. When things were going the wrong way, they had the fortitude, as he said, to figure it out, right the ship, keep doing what they were doing, keep attacking. Again, Mississippi State's known, Brad, for going real, Blake, for going real conservative. Yeah. Kind of running the football. They're up, and Leach just didn't do that after
He's not going to.
No.
He's not going to run it. Just buckle in, boys and girls. It's not going to happen.
Let me make an announcement real quick. We're having some issues with our podcast. So the Steve Robertson interview from today and the Brad Edwards interview, okay, you can find those. If you missed some of them or want to listen to them again, you can find them on Facebook, search The Out of Bounds Show. You can find it on YouTube, search Out of Bounds Sports. We're going to see what, kind of shakes out here over the next hour or so.
I will say I'm going to do, if things don't straighten out on the podcast side, we're working through some technical stuff with our host. I will have all 3 hours on the Facebook page as well. Okay. So you'll be able to listen to the whole show on Facebook, search The Out of Bounds Show. And as Bo said, the interviews are on YouTube. They're on bowbounds.com. They're on the Facebook page. Search The Out of Bounds Show.
I also want to start the show tomorrow with what Brad just hit on, the future of football with 2 quarterbacks on the field and how 10 years from now that could just be where it's something that we expect. High school, college, NFL. Steve Palazzolo made a great point at how many good QBs there are in the NFL. Mm-hmm. When I was growing up, there was not. There just wasn't. I mean, the position wasn't coach. People didn't throw the football. You know the drill. What if 5, 6, 7, 8 years from now, you see 2 quarterbacks who are a legitimate threat to throw the football down the field? That's kind of wild. But it looks like it's the way the game is going, especially now that so many dads want their kids to play quarterback, which means they're going to invest money, time, and everything else. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Brought to you by USA Pawn for all your tools, electronics, and firearms. USA Pawn's Mega Store, I-55 South, McDowell Road. And Chris Corley with Angel Oak Home Loans. He'll shop the best rates for you as you're looking for your new home or another home. Chris Corley, 540-6791. Chris Corley, Angel Oak Home Loans. We'll see you tomorrow.